Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Us all. Ooh, okay. Yes, we made it. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to make it here, but we do make it. So I do thank you, ladies, for choosing to share your time with me today. So welcome to welcome to Save Our Kids. So today, I guess we're gonna go ahead and do introductions as to who each of you are and what you offer and why you've chosen to be here. Let me switch to some of these other things. I don't know. And but I will also like to say, all right, maybe I like that one better. I also like to say that it is World Health Mental Health Day today, October 10th. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that from a health perspective and things like that, make sure you take care of yourself because that is the most important part. So we're going to go ahead and start with Christina. I'll take this down for a minute. Christina, you're going to go ahead and share with us who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Well, thank you for having me here, Tabitha. My name is Christina Bose. I'm founder of The Impactful Parent. I help parents of school-age children turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. And I do that through one-on-one coaching, through my online courses, and I also created an app for parents, which is free and available on your app store. It's called The Impactful Parent. And so, you know, why I do this is because there is not enough resources for parents of adolescents, which there's tons of things out there for young children, but when they get to be teenagers, it's like it's really lonely as a parent, I think. And well, I know I have 4 children of my own, and it's just a lonely place. So I created a space for parents to be able to ask questions and not get judged on it, and then the app I created because I don't want people to go down that Google machine of crazy and, discover all kinds of crap from what could be online. Instead, they have a reliable resource right in their pocket that they could pull out in the middle of the night because that's exactly when our questions come. And so they could pull that out, watch a simple video or something, and get a parenting resource, and that's really why I created. So it's mainly for parents of school-age children. That would be ages between the ages of 6 and 18 for the child. And let's see what else. If you would like to contact me on that, I'm at theimpactfulparent.com, and on there is also my website. So like my app, you can go to your app store and just put in Impactful Parent. I'll be there. But yeah, the website has all those links too. So hope you check it out.
This is pretty cool. I like that because, and I'm glad you're here because one of the things is that you are right. There's so, first of all, hats off to you for 4 children because I only got 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 a lot of things, and I only got 2 children, and I had to stop there. I was like, we can't keep going because I don't know how I'm going to keep up. But you're right. A lot of the questions we have and the challenges that we encounter, it's at the quiet time of our day that we actually need or are searching for the answers to some of our questions. So I do greatly appreciate the fact that you're here and sharing that with us. So cool. All right, so we'll bring Diana up and we'll share so she can share with us what she is up to while I finish what I'm doing over here. This is crazy.
So Christina, I have to say hats off to you as well. I have 3 kids. I was planning on 2. The universe decided I needed to be put on the bonus plan, so I have 1 single and twins. So yeah, who saw that coming? Not us, that's for sure. And so I agree that the things that, you're laying there at night, you're trying to go to bed, and all of a sudden this idea pops into your head and you can't get it to go away. and you need to either put it out in the universe so you know when you wake up there'll be answers to your possibly be answers to your question. There might be some ideas on some different ways to tackle it. That could be very calming for a lot of people. Or if there happens to be somebody online at that point and you can start up a conversation, having a place to put those things, I see that would be an invaluable resource. I homeschool my kids, so it's a little different situation, but at the same time, there is a place out there for homeschoolers to do that same kind of idea. So, but I really like what you're doing and how you're doing it. Okay, so as far as me, I'm Diana Mooring. I work for DS Labs, and we do cybersecurity through a hardware device and not a software solution. Why is that important when we're talking about keeping kids safe? Well, because the school systems out there, they house a lot of data about our children. Their names, their birthdays, their social security numbers, their addresses, all of this information is in their systems. So having strong cyber defenses in place in order to make sure we keep our children's information safe would be an outstanding idea. And that's where our device comes in and could help the schools and the school systems really add an extra layer of protection to keeping our kids' information safe. And with that, Tabitha, back to you.
Aha. See, I finally got your thing up. That's why I was trying to get your QR code up. I was like, let's hurry up and get this up. It'll be fine.
Yep.
So, I'm glad that you're here. I think it's amazing because, as you were saying that, again, there's a couple things I never really picked up, right? Is the fact I know that all the data is stored at schools and things like that, but sometimes we don't even think or consider what that may look like for our students if that information gets out. So it's a very, very good point you made. Yay. So cool. Glad we're able to do that. All right. And then there's me. So my name is Tabitha Barron. I am the founder of Keeping Your Kids Safe. No, my hand is not raised, but every once in a while it does look that way. So what I do is I help solve the problem of the communication challenges that we all have when it comes to dropping off our children at school. What time do they leave? Are they going to get on the right bus? Answering all of the questions the parents have. By allowing each child to effectively communicate their way home, it ensures that everyone that is a part of that child's day is able to know where the child is, what direction they're going into, and being able to communicate effectively with the child and with the school. All right. So with all that being said, we got some people that are already showing up. It's always great to see Phil. Hi, Phil. Take my money, Diana.
But like I put out there, it's not an expensive solution, which is why it is perfect for schools. Because if you go to our website, mycyberstack.com, you can learn all about the device. And we actually put all of our pricing on our website so that people will understand this is an affordable solution. It was actually designed and created for the small to mid-sized business market. So educational institutions that have small budgets for IT, this is perfect for them because it can protect up to 1,000 devices per subnet, because I know some schools can actually have more than 1,000 devices. Any way you want to slice it, it's still an affordable solution for schools. So
Yes, that's a big thing, right? I'm gonna go ahead and let's put us up here and do this. So Phil says, thank you, Christina, for doing what you're doing. Every parent needs parent coaching. All parents need a team of coaching because there are so many expertise they should be in the know about. And that's really important and true. And so it helps me to segue into, make sure I put this back up. I want to put this banner up, make sure that we're being respectful of that. What I wanted to go ahead and share. So first and foremost, I always want to thank everyone who's joining us today to spending their hour with us to share within the conversation, to join our conversation. I also want to thank the village because at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without the village being present and available to help us. And that means your community, And again, you'll hear me say parent 1, home, parent 2, school, bonus parent, community. That's kind of how I look at it. But before we can create anything, we definitely need to understand what we're creating and why we're creating it. So And again, this is just a conversation starter, but these are some very staggering stats. And there's a few other things that I want to make sure that we're aware of. One first, World Mental Health Day is October 10th. Please make sure that you are the reason somebody smiles today. It is hard enough in life to kind of work through life and do those things without having all of those challenges and suffering through things unnecessarily. I heard that TikTok is actually they actually joined forces with some of the doctors or the Cleveland Clinic. They joined forces with them to actually have, when somebody searches depression or anything along the mental health spectrum, they're actually provided a little bit more information that allows them to go and seek help elsewhere, because social media also always very helpful in promoting ourselves and seeing what other things, other people, and staying connected, what other people are doing, staying connected to them, things like that. But it does have a downside, which is that it does have a tendency to impact your mental health if not properly managed. Okay. So those who are in, so I have found it very frustrating lately that I'm very frustrated with the decision makers we put into position. Those people went out and got jobs. We, with our tax dollars, are paying their salaries and making sure these schools stay open. Meanwhile, what we're receiving in turn is not what we expect to have, and the challenges with that for that student afterwards is a problem. Why do I say that? 42 million children go to sleep hungry a day. That is bothersome. And that is something, with the amount of food waste that we have in this country, there is no child that should lay their heads down and without their tummies being full or satisfied. So that is unacceptable and something that we can solve. 1.2 million children per year are sold into slavery. I just heard a story about a mom who sold her two children for $500. There is something to be said about that. I'm pretty sure that mom didn't wake up one day and say, I'm just going to go ahead and sell my children because I need that $500 so I can pay my power bill. That is not what they're doing. So something else has to happen. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that you need to feel safe, you have food, shelter. And if they're not having that, that's a problem. When we look at it, 37% can't read on grade level. That's where, Christina, you come into play, because at the end of the day, 37% is a metric that it should scream we have to do something. I come from an engineering background, so at the end of the day, when we see numbers, when we see certain failures, we chase those failures to minimize them and reduce them. While we're not doing that, with 37% not being able to read on grade level, says a lot for the leadership and the metrics that it's being measured against. So that means 3, 3.5, 3.7 children out of 10 children in your classroom cannot read on grade level. That's a problem, and that is something that could be solved. There's at least 2 children that get lost in transit every single day. Just because you do not see it and they did not tell you does not mean a child is not out of place when it's time for dismissal. So these are just a few numbers that support that there is a need for a change. There is a need for a conversation, and it is time for us to hold the other people's feet to the fire to make a change that is going to impact our children for the rest of their lives. We have 18 years with them according to the law. Okay, now whether or not they leave before that is something totally different. But we are responsible for these children up to the age of 18. At the age of 18 in one day, they're entitled to go out and explore life and do things and implement all of those things that we have taught them. Whether we're parent one, we teach them our life skills and the value systems at home. Parent two teaches them education, math, reading, science, different things like that. And the community teaches them, okay, you can't just be peeing in my yard and not having a consequence to that, right? So all of us are teaching that. And so at 18 years of age, they get to go out and implement all the things that they're taught. But if we don't teach them enough, we start to see where they sell their children for $500, where they make decisions that are not necessarily favorable and they don't have longevity to them. So it's time for us to make a change, right? It's definitely something to be said about that. And so I have agreed to ring the bell every day and any day thereafter until we get these problems solved because it's just not okay. So I will start with Christina. So Christina, what can parents do to help improve the fact that some of their children, or even the signs that say that their children are having a problem and a challenge when it comes to reading? So what can they do differently, or how can they improve that?
Well, first of all, I think that the mistake that a lot of parents make is waiting too long because they're embarrassed. It's like you have to look in first, and a lot of times what parents do is say, "Oh, he's okay. He's not talking yet because he's the third in line, and the older ones are talking for them." So you start making excuses for why your kid's not hitting some of the marks that they're supposed to be hitting, and it happens all the time. It doesn't make you a bad parent or anything like that. It's just I want to make parents aware that you're doing this because we all kind of tend to do that. We don't want to say, is there something wrong here? Because then we feel guilty. We feel like we even blame ourselves. We start to think, oh, like it's going to all the time and energy and money that it might take to correct the problem. So it's much easier to go into a denial state and say, oh, it's okay. And they start to just reason it out of why there's a speech delay or a reading delay or whatever it is. So they don't want to see it. If you can get past that, then and you're starting to be really observant of your child. After that, it's starting to ask questions and really monitoring. I don't know why a lot of parents don't do this, but keeping track, even in your phone, a journal, just a piece of paper on some of the things that you see are a little off or maybe a little bit difficult for your child. Whether it's, they're having trouble reading in general, or maybe it's just a particular word, or maybe you see them mixing their words around, or maybe it's not reading at all. Maybe it's writing. Maybe, and if a kid doesn't like it, there's a good chance that they're not good at it either. We tend as little children not to want to challenge ourselves. We lean into things that are good, like that are easy for us. So if you see that your child's avoiding something in addition to all of that, that should also kind of put up a little red flag in your brain so you can start watching a little bit more. Between those two, between just being a really observant parent and also being the parent that's saying, okay, it's okay if this is going to be an issue. We're going to go through this together. And you got to have that, like, we're pulling ourselves by our bootstraps up and we're taking it on kind of attitude toward it when you're starting. But if you can get there, those are the two main things I think that parents just skip over.
Right. I agree. I get that because I think that a lot of times, so based on what you said, it's almost like the parents, what a child does and how they learn is not a direct reflection on us as what we've created. What we do next is direct reflection on us. So if we learn that our child is having a hard time reading, or they're having a challenge, they're stumbling on their words, you see things are mixing around, things like that. It's what you do next that counts. It's not the fact that you identify it. It's the fact that you see it and you're like, they'll catch up and we'll just ignore it. If I ignore it, la 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 la, it'll go away. It doesn't. So you have to be part of the solution. And education is not the only teacher. You are teacher number one.
Yes,
Teacher,
but I feel like a lot of parents struggle with the patience to teach their children reading. As a homeschool parent, I was my kids' everything teacher. So think about that for a minute. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, you must have the patience of a saint. You must have been born with all the patience in the world." That is not true. Not true. Not true. Patience can be learned. It's not just, you're not just born with it or not. I was the very first one. I will be the first one to admit teaching my first daughter to read was probably the hardest thing I have ever done in life. It was not easy for her. It did not come easy to her. And so I think that's where we as parents also want to lean into the school system to fix the issue. Now, what I have found by talking to other parents is there are a lot of resources at the school that many parents know nothing about. So if you see those signs that your child is struggling and they're having difficulties, and you yourself do not feel that you have the patience to take that on, I would say the first call should be to the school district. One, like everything in life, we want to know we're not alone. Our kid is not the only one struggling to read. Our child is not the only one with these difficulties. But I think the second thing is, if you can't find it, and not everybody can. It takes so much patience to teach a child to read. It's crazy. So saying we're teacher number one, I totally agree with that. But sometimes we have to play to our strengths and know our weaknesses. If this is going to cause you to want to, like, if it's a point where you're yelling at your child for not reading correct, okay, that means something's not there. And so that's when I feel like the reach out for help, call the school, ask what programs are available for kids that are struggling to read. And my daughter had test anxiety. If she had been in the public school system, I would have totally had to get her into one of those rooms where she could read the test questions out loud, because if she tried to not read them out loud and take a test, she would fail every time. But if I would sit there and let her read it out loud to herself, she could pass it no problem. But recognizing that, I realized there's actually a place for that in public school. So there's all of these programs and things that we may or may not know about that could help us as parents to then help them as students to succeed better, faster, without us completely tearing our hair out and losing our minds. How many people saw all the messages all over Facebook during COVID when teaching fell to the parents going, I can't do this. I'm out. Like, this is too hard. I have a whole new respect for teachers. I saw all of those posts. And as a homeschool parent, people are like, I don't know how you do this every day. Like, this is the craziest thing ever. And so I feel like you just have to play to your strengths as a parent, know what those weaknesses are, and reach for help when it falls in that weakness category.
I'd like to add to that before we move on. Diana, is such important message. And to add to that is that many parents don't want to become a part of the team that they need in order to help their child. And that's one of the first things that you should do, is that when you discover maybe that they're lagging in anything. My oldest son is dyslexic, and for years I couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong with the kid. I was like, why do you refuse to learn the alphabet? And it was so infuriating and frustrating. And you get into this frenzy kind of state as a parent many, many times, and you forget that you're not the only person that's going to be able to help your child. We kind of put all the blame on and all the weight on ourselves, when really one of the first thing I'd like parents to realize to do is, okay, I see something's off. I don't need to figure it out. Instead, I need to start collecting my team. I'm going to go pull from these places. The school, a counselor, it could be the school's going to give you a whole bunch of different other places, testing that you can do, blah, 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 like all, resource centers that you'll be able to go, and depending on whether it's sensory processing disorder all the way to dyslexia to just difficulty reading, whatever it might look like. Once you start collecting your team members of those people that you're collecting to help you with your child are going to refer you to more team members that they think is going to help your child. And now you got this collective. Now you're not so overwhelmed because you've lightened your load of responsibility just a little bit.
You're quarterback now rather than the only player on the field, right?
Right. Yes. But at the same time, when we go back to, like you were talking about COVID, so many parents, once they collect their team, also want to say, you guys got it. And then they kind of want to take a step back because the teachers can teach my kid how to read. You have to be a part of the team. And so just remember that, like, you're going to collect the team, but then you're going to stay a part of the team. You're actually the most valuable player. You are the MVP of this. So, and you can do it. You're going to be the leader of that team, but you do need to take a part of it and do whatever it is that they have you practice at home. And you got to do all that stuff. But with the team, you're going to succeed.
Exactly. So you ladies just said it.
I like putting that in the football reference. You're the quarterback. You're making sure all the players do their part. But at the end of the game, you're the one making sure everything's in place so your team, including your student, can win.
You guys 100% just outlined and identified the village. That is what we have gotten away from. So I'm glad that this happened, because this actually tells you that, first of all, a homeschooling parent and another parent and an impactful parent actually is saying the same thing. We cannot do this alone. When you go to a job, they don't say, okay, they didn't say to me, okay, Tabitha, you're an engineer and we want you to balance our books and we want you to go out and sell and we want you to do all these things. That's not what they said to me. What they said was, because you have this education and this is your strength, we're going to lean into your strength. And so we want you to only focus in on this. So when we invite other people in to help fill those gaps, we build a more resilient and structurally sound child into an adult, and it helps them to get there. But we can't do it by ourselves. And I was never, ever suggesting that. I think that ultimately we have to make a decision. So when you see, like, my son, my son is on a spectrum. And when he was little and just getting started, he was just like, I mean, he was a Tasmanian devil. He was everywhere and doing everything and all the things and stuff. But something happened and he stopped talking. It was like the light switch went off. Click. No more noise, no more sound. No, only sound I heard was screaming. And I cannot impress upon you enough, screaming. But when we take them into school, and when I went through this process, you know what they told me? He'll catch up. I was like, he's delayed by 6 months now, and he's only a year and a half old or 2 years old. He'll catch up, is what they said. He did not, he never caught up. The gap just kept getting worse. But because I was so diligent and in people's face, hang on, I have questions. Hang on, we need to know more. Hang on, I need to understand. My son has his speech. He is okay. He is living the best life he can possibly live with the challenges that he has, right? And that is a testament to me, what I chose to do. I made a decision as a parent that I know I needed my kid to be able to survive this life and world without me. And the only way he can do that is to have enough information in order to successfully go out there and do the things that adults do without having to ask for permission, or is this right? And Kate, can you read this to me? Because can't read. I figured out what his deficits were, and then I figured out how to fill that gap. And that's what parents need to do. And it is our responsibility as teacher number one. We teach them how to wipe their behinds. We teach them how to wash their face and brush their teeth. We teach them good sleeping habits. And sometimes we can teach them financial literacy. Here's the bank. Here's $2. We're going to give you this money. Go ahead and put it in a bank, right? So we're teaching them too. But we cannot, the teachers can't do it alone, because we understand the behaviors and where they're coming from. And the teachers understand the academics. And then, so together we should be able to do this right thing.
So
the one thing I
Tabitha,
want,
do me a
go
favor
ahead.
and explain on the spectrum, because not all parents know what that means. And until I met you, I didn't know what it meant. So I'm going to say, tell what that means, just because I'm sure there's other people out there like me. The first time she said that, I'm like, whoa, hold up. What?
So autism is now on a spectrum. So you have Asperger's all the way up until, you definitely cannot live alone. So my son is on that autism spectrum, where he has challenges they consider a disability. He has different superpowers than the rest of us. So that's how I look at it. And they do have some superpowers. Some of them are really, really strong in math and science and things like that. But in general, they have a knack to do things that we would never dream of. So that's why I never discount anybody with any type of special needs, because they can do things that we can only dream about. And that is why I know that them little people into adults are amazing individuals.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that got put out there.
Everybody knew what it was. Thank you, Diana. What I want to share is that I seen a post today from Matt Barnes, and he is definitely an advocate for children and education. And they posted something about the top performing public schools in the United States. And strangely enough, Department of Defense schools, some from 2013 to 2022, they increased their proficiency in eighth graders from 45% up to 55%. Meanwhile, the rest of the country, literally a lot of the people in the country, reduced. One of them, Massachusetts, went from 55, well, they were 35%. So somehow or another, those numbers are back, somehow crazy. It looks like it went down. It actually decreased. So they were sitting at potentially 55, and now they're down to 35 type of a thing. So what do you think is the driving forces for why what is happening that we do not feel as though our eighth graders, our children, should not be proficient in math and reading by the time they hit eighth grade? Because by this point, it's almost too late. It's not too late, but we're almost, the child is starting to give up at this point. And this is a sign of us not paying attention or listening. And the metrics is telling you that 25 students in your classroom, you got 15 that are making it and 10 that are failing. And that seems to be an acceptable thing. And then you push it back to parent number one, which is home, and say, now you guys have to solve this problem. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are. And I like the fact that there's two different groups, right? Homeschooling versus public schools. So you're able to see both sides of it. So ladies, go ahead, chime in. Let's figure out what's going on.
So, and I'm just saying this strictly from honestly watching this podcast in previous weeks and having teachers on here. The fact that what we were talking about earlier, everything being pushed to the teachers, parents want to kind of chime out of the whole teaching proficiency, all of those kinds of things. I think it's a combination of that and not enough time in a day. When I see a teacher on your show here and she is saying, I don't have 15 minutes in my day in order to do X because we have to do Y, that makes me think there's too much going on in a day. And the part that's kind of bothering me is I'm hearing the teachers say this, that they're losing hope because of the fact it's such a difficult place to be. I mean, from what I'm seeing, and I don't know this personally, if there are any teachers out there watching, please feel free to throw stuff in the comments. But we constantly hear they're underpaid, they're overworked, we're expecting too much of them. That's got to play into all of this. And they have to feel defeated. And once your teachers feel defeated, how do your children that are those 10 that aren't making it, how do they succeed when the teacher's already defeated? They're walking into school that day already knowing this is a lost cause. And all of the schools pushing the testing because that's what their funding is tied to. They have to make sure those 25 out of the class succeed or excel. And so it's like when I see all these parents and I'm talking to people who are in the public school system, I have zero knowledge of this personally, but they're either you have your kids that are in remedial classes and trying to catch up, or they're in AP. I'm like, is anybody in the middle anymore? Does anybody just learn and stay right there? I'm just doing my best work, living my best life here in public school, just getting it done. It's like my kid's in AP, my child's in AP, my student's in AP, or they're in remedial, they're suffering, they're trying to get up there. And it's just, I think when you combine all of those things, teachers, time, students, when you throw it all in there together, how is this a recipe for success?
That is very true. I believe that's true. But I think that even some of the teachers, I mean, Kristen, I mean, there's so many teachers, first of all, the same names, but Christina, I have here. But
Yeah, I was an educator for over 20 years before I started my other business. So
So
and it's
tell us your thoughts.
tired. Tell me. So what's the deal? Because I think that that's one of the things that Kristen said to me was that it's not a lack of bunch of teachers. Teachers have chosen to leave because you guys are being asked to do so much more, and without regard to how it's going to impact the child in the end. So share with us a little bit about, your take on it from a teacher's perspective, because I want to support. I'm here to identify the problem, provide a solution, and an actionable item that people can walk away with. So go ahead, please share.
Well, I mean, Diana's right. It's a culmination of all of that. It's not just one thing. In fact, teachers are extremely resilient. And I wouldn't say that they feel defeated. I think some of them obviously do. Most of them are just spread too thin, exhausted, and still coming into work optimistic and trying their hardest. I would think that is the majority, actually, of what teachers are doing. Of course, there's also the other end, but I mean, most of them, they're trying so hard. They love the kids so freaking much. That's why they're doing it, because it isn't for the money. But yes, it's class size. It's because how can you possibly give individual attention when your class has 35 kids, even 20 kids? If you have 20 kids with special needs, that is a lot of children who need your attention. And 20 is a very small class size. If your child's one of 20, you're like stoked about that. That is great. And yet that's still really, it's a lot when you have so many needs there. So yeah, there is a lot more needs now to the teachers. Why? Because for a good thing, parents are getting them checked. And so now they're being identified. And while now it's illegal, even literally for a teacher to ignore a child with a learning that's a proven learning disability, right? An IEP or has some kind of documentation, it's illegal for them as a teacher not to help that child, as you wouldn't want to, right? But I'm just saying there's more kids actually getting identified than there was, let's say, 20 years ago. We didn't even really know half of these things 20 years ago. ADHD is relatively new in, schools versus when our parents, and I'm talking about my parents, I'm 47, my parents, when they went to school, nobody had ADHD. They weren't documenting any of that back then, So
I thought in play I said it.
it's like there's just more documented, which means now we have more responsibility, which is awesome. You know how to help the kids. You know which kids you really need to help. But on top of that, you got a bigger class size. On top of that, you got a bigger workload. There's more expectations for you. Now you have to, some kids have to teach for the test. AP exams are the epitome of that. You teach to the test when you have an AP class or any other kind of standardized testing. So then you're held to that kind of standard. It's just layering. It's super overwhelming.
Right.
So the kids are falling through the cracks. And then what happens? We tell the parents we're doing our best, but maybe the parents again they have their team and they're like, but you're supposed to do that. You're the teacher. And they want to be a little bit more hands off now. The kid is again falling through more cracks. In addition to all of that teacher overwhelm, we don't hold kids back anymore.
No.
When was the last
They're not
time
even
a
allowed to
kid
fail.
repeated the third or the fourth grade? Only kindergarten or preschool is typically repeated nowadays. And so you got that on top of it. So now you're pushing kids through to the next level. The expectations are getting higher and higher. And you're really only putting kids in by age, which anybody knows that you can have. I know 9-year-olds more responsible than some 16-year-olds, and I know 16-year-olds who are rock stars. But maturity and cognitive ability and how well they've developed is not determined by their age necessarily. So then now you have a classroom full of really divergent kids. And again, they all need your needs. And yeah. And so it just goes, I mean, your head wants to
What
explode.
happens now in a public school? Because I know failure is no longer an option. You cannot fail a grade. And so, I mean, it used to be when I was in school, I went to public school all 12 years, no craziness there. I was in just a regular run of the mill public school. And I know if you failed however many classes for however many semesters, you repeated that year. But you hear these stories and I don't know anybody personally. Again, if somebody's out there that knows what we're talking about, throw stuff into the comments. But I don't know what happens when a child truly does, and because the kids know the fact that they can't fail, they can't be held back. Why do the homework? And I've heard parents talk about that. The kids are like, why do I need to do this? I can fail everything, every test, everything. And if I'm not one of those people that's looking to go to college, and so I'm an AP student, right? Because those are all of our college bound kids. If I'm just like, you know what, I don't know what the future is going to bring. I'm not going to do this homework. I'm not going to study for that test. I'm not going to do any of that. As a parent or as a teacher, what do you do in that scenario? Because if we're talking about that 10 per that those 10 kids out of every 30 students that are, how many of them are choosing to be there because of lack of drive, lack of ambition, lack of these things? And as a parent, what are your options there?
Okay, so let me chime in here to some of this though,
Okay,
because
I would love to know because I honestly just don't know.
this is true. So here we are. Top burnout statistics for 2023. K through 12 teachers are the number one most burned out profession because of what Christina just outlined. Here we are. 4 million teachers, 35% of them want to quit. They do not want to do this job anymore. And it doesn't have anything to do with the children. Children are going to test every limit known to man. That's what they're here for. Honestly. There is no other reason these children are yes, we're supposed to populate and reproduce. Yes. But they're here to test our resilience, right? They're here to test us and figure out how strong we are to carry on, to move forward. But when you have so many teachers who want to quit, that's a metric that needs to be measured. And then I read something yesterday again where they're talking about that there's so many teachers that are literally on antidepressants and anxiety medications and things like that. Do we think that that's because of the kids? No. Do we think that's because of the amount of students we have? I do not believe so. I think that what they're being measured against needs to be altered and changed. But who owns the metrics? We do. We don't accept responsibility for that metrics, but we own the metrics. Every time we get a child or a child that turns into an adult, that turns into our employee who cannot read, who does not understand the simple things that they need to do or should have been taught at school, that is us. Because we can go in and say, based on your numbers, school district ABC, your numbers are so bad, we want to remove this person, and this person because they contribute to the degrade of our students' outcomes. The desired outcome for my child, every once in a while, I turn to my kids and say, I need to write my congressman for my money back for your education. You didn't pay for my education? Oh, yes, I did. My school taxes paid for your education. So let's be very clear about that. What I expected you to have and be able to put forward in your life does not exist. And because I was fighting so many different battles, when I'm raising my kids, that I did not go and say, okay, I need to band together and get a bunch of parents and we need to solve this problem a different way. All I'm asking is for us to start filling these gaps for some of this, because what are we to do? Our tax dollars are paying their salaries. Our tax dollars are allowing us to put these certain programs in place, but we're responsible first. The school is responsible second. And collectively, it's a collective responsibility for us to get those children where they need to be. And it's not okay to throw it over the fence and say, okay, it's up to you now, go for it. Let me know how that works. It's not cool. So I believe the metrics needs to be changed. And I always remember in engineering, they say you can either change the people or you can change the people. But no matter what we do, we must change people. What they meant by that is that you either change your mindset and choose to go at it a different way, or we will put another person in position that will give us the desired outcome. And that is what we need to do. And when we look at it at the end of the day, we 100% need to say, if we continue to see a growing number of children not being able to read, it's time to terminate some people's positions.
This is a kind of a side to that, but it does matter. In my opinion, I feel like schools really need to take a focus in adding in trade work again. So back when I was a kid, you took home ec, you took shop, you took these things. And now we're so academically heavy that in order to succeed in school, you have to know how to read because everything is reading based. What about our art classes and our music classes and all these other electives that schools used to weigh a lot more than they do now, at least. I don't want to say evenly, but definitely more than they do today.
And
And
wasn't
we've
it called a
eliminated
co-op
those.
where you could
And now you have
actually,
kids that, like you said, we can't read, and they're feeling even more discouraged about themselves because they can't succeed. We've literally set them more up not to succeed or not to find their passion. Some of us who are severely whatever dyslexic or autistic or whatever, that they may never be a great reader, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be successful. They just need to find their niche. And we've taken out those options for kids to excel in something that they can grab onto. And I just feel like that's part of this whole problem too. So you get a defeated child, and then what do? They just give up. And now you're seeing those statistics again, and then we're still pushing them through. And yeah, all of that. Just wanted to add that's another part of it.
I think that that's a really good point, and I'm glad you bring that up. Phil says, "Kudos to you, Christina." So teachers are so resilient, and they're optimistic every day. And I see them; they come in, they're like gun ho. I fixed my classroom. This looks beautiful. Everything is ready and set. And even though the volcano has erupted, so many deep issues, kids fail at their classes, so no child is left behind. You get your high school diploma, you get your,
meaning they're
you
handing them out. You get a high school diploma, you get a high school diploma, you get a high. That's where he's saying it's like Oprah, you just hand one
yeah,
out to everybody. But they're not looking at whether or not they're strong readers. And I know when I went to school, there was a program that the kids could get into where they had to take math, English, and I think science, the first three classes of the day. But then the second half of the day, they got to go learn a trade. I can't remember what it was called. It was co-op or something that they did where they actually went to go learn how to be a mechanic, learn how to be a plumber, learn how to be an HVAC person. They got to go do those things with the second half of their day because they knew academia wasn't their strength. They could still read, but they weren't proficient at it. They weren't above the curve. They weren't this, they weren't that. So I feel like that you're right, that some of those programs that have disappeared over the years could help these kids succeed at life and not just prepare them to go off to college. And then you've got, again, another part of society where there's a great divide. You
Yeah.
have those ready to go to college and those who aren't going to go to college that are now like, what do I do? At
That's
least
been the
with those
downfall, right?
programs in school, they have
That
those
K
things.
through 12 education has a responsibility to develop proficient citizens, not to necessarily develop university students. That's only one part of what the public education should offer. And right now it seems like it's 80% more of what their goal is we got to get you ready for college. But really, what about everybody else? Not
right.
everybody is going to go to college. Let's make proficient citizens K through 12, give them other options.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I'm glad that you got. So I love the fact that we're given solutions as we go along, right? One of the things is that I don't know why that thought just came out, just flew out of my head. So the trade schools and things like that, that is important, but there is money to be made in the divide. So let's be very clear. So a public school gets funding from the government and from our taxes. So they get money from two places, right? And that means that it's government, that's running it. We know that there is money to be made in the divide. So what happens is that if you run the school like a business, then you forget that your customers are the ones you're teaching and you need them to come back in and take over. So, but because there's so much money in the divide, what happens is when you have students who fail reading at a certain age, they have figured out the trajectory of that student and where they're going to potentially land, which is going to be, in jail. And then they're feeding that financial um, tunnel or funnel into somebody else's pocket. So my question, and this is not something we're going to be able to answer today, but just think about it. At the end of the day, if we have more children, if we have 90% of the population of children who can read and do math, then whose pockets are we challenging with that number? Because I believe that is partially where the problem lies. Because when there is war, millionaires are made. When you have children who can't read, Therefore, they sign their rights away and end up in jail and in prison, okay, or in various situations. If you look at the legal system, most of the people that are in jail today, they went in on a plea because based on their understanding and what they successfully read through that to understand, comprehend what they were about to do. And now they're in jail for a long period of time because it is more beneficial to have them inside of a gate than it is to have them productively outside of the gate. So I would challenge each person who's listening and paying attention. If you notice your child cannot read, if you notice that they are struggling in these certain places, please take note, seek help, reach out to Christina, reach out to your school, reach out to your doctors, and ask them questions and get that student tested. Because if you don't do anything, there's a very good possibility that you will be visiting your child through glass because they are going to land somewhere because they don't know how to do the simple things in order to get them to be productive in this life.
So to come full circle, if you have those children and you as a parent choose not to do anything about it, we're feeding into bad mental health day.
Yes.
Because there is no way that a child that is struggling through the system, who feels alone because their parent is not advocating for them, is not stepping up and building the team that Christina talked about to help that student, to pull them up by those bootstraps that we talked about at the very beginning. So let's just go completely full circle with this. And so to improve their mental health, we as parents have to step up. We have to quarterback that team. We have to build out that team so that that child can be successful in whatever they choose to do. Whether they make it to college, this is not a world where a college degree determines everything. You can make as much money this day and age as a plumber as you can someone in IT. The hourly wage is probably higher for the plumber at this point because we need more plumbers. We need more electricians. We need more of those hands-on people. So, okay, stop telling your child who's struggling and having a hard time that they have to set their sights on a college degree. Would we all love that? Absolutely. Is the
No.
world sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows? No, it's not. Build out the right team for your child, for
Yep.
your situation, for what you've got going on. Reach out to the resources that are available. Reach out and people ask those resources for more resources. Like Christina said, look in places that people don't necessarily talk about. Post something saying, hey, I need some help. I'm looking for da da da. There could be reading programs. I took my daughter my youngest daughter who struggled. There's a place down the road called Book Bums. She deals with children that have reading issues that can't developmentally get the phonics to go with the letters. So I took her there. Again, if I hadn't reached out to my community and went, okay, I need help, like Christina's app allows you to do. Okay, I need help. Somebody tell me who I should be calling to help my child become a better reader, to learn to read, to learn to do math better, to pass this algebra test, to get them out of the situation they're in. Because if we leave them there, we are dooming them to failure. And again, going back full circle, the last thing I'll touch on is the fact Christina talked about we as parents feel like our children are a reflection of us. Don't let them fail.
Be the example you want to see in them in 20 years. You cannot expect your child to come out of nowhere and says, I'm going to be better and different than my parents. Because if there's no example, then there's nothing for them to follow. The breadcrumbs don't exist. So at the end of the day, that is what we need to do. So look, I'm going to bring Phil's comment up one more time. Schools are not responsible to help or support every individual student. Figure out what careers they want to pursue. This is the gap the students and parents need to have on their radar. Otherwise, the youth is on their own. Here is the solution. I am here to help students and parents to explore careers. And he's talking about planandenvision.com. And that he's absolutely correct because you don't have to do it alone. But at the same time, you have to parent the child you receive, not the child you want. There is definitely a difference. And oh, by the way, a lot of these students have said they were not ready for college. So if K through 12, if you're preparing all these kiddos to be ready for college, they are saying, they are screaming, we need to start listening. They do not feel that they are ready for college. That is 100% a failure on every single adult in that child's life, because that is where we need to make the change and the difference. Because until we do something different, we're going to have more, we're going to now extend K through 12 bad behavior into college. And then
Because what? It takes a village.
it takes a village, my friends. Yes, indeed. I'm so glad you ladies have came here and hung out with us. We've had some really interesting comments, and definitely I see you, Troy, Phil, Christine. I like the fact that we were able to do this. So as we're starting to wrap up, please make sure to let everybody know how they're to find you so that they can connect with you, because our impactful parenting is an extremely important thing. I love the platform. I think that the fact that you are able to really and truly help parents navigate and find solutions that they're looking for, regardless of time of day, I think is really cool. So we'll start with you, Christine. Please share with people how to find you and what you're looking for.
Yeah. So again, I would go to theimpactfulparent.com to find out all about me, whether it's my online courses or the coaching or the app. But it's theimpactfulparent.com. And remember that inside the app, it's free to download. So all you have to do is do that. And you're going to have so many different resources right at your tips. Anything from free 30-day challenges that are going to help make you a better parent to short videos to answer questions that are the post pressing on your mind, like how do I get my child to stop procrastinating, or does my child have ADHD? I don't know. What are some of the signs? There's videos, like 200 different short videos to help parents inside the app. So I hope you check it out, because a lot of those videos are coming from guest speakers such as Tabitha herself that can say, hey, you have trouble, after school getting your child home, here's somewhere that you can go to get help for that. There's so many resources that you can go find. So go look at it, check it out, download it.
I'm excited. Thank you, Christine. Go ahead, Diana.
Best place to get a hold of me, LinkedIn. Just look up Diana Mooring. I work for DS Labs. It'll come up. You can connect with me there. You can book an appointment with me there. Everything that you need to know, you can find from there. You can get to our website. You can get to our LinkedIn page. You can get to everything from my LinkedIn. So Diana Mooring, DS Labs.
Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation with some amazing leaders. So what I want to say is that we always bring a challenge to the table, discuss it, explore what our options are, and provide solutions. Inside this conversation, we've had a number of solutions that can be that different people can use, actionable items for them to go and seek a different outcome for their child. Your children are our future, and it is important that we participate as much as we can. Remember, words are power. Use them wisely. Have a great one. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.